bladder habits. So the things that we do on a regular basis that either set our bladder up for success or failure. These things are relatively easy to fix, and that's what we're really going to be talking about in this video. What are some typical bad bladder habits and how do we fix them? So the first one we're going to talk about is just in case peeing. This is something that's often really ingrained from us from a really young age, right? Oh, before we get in the car, before we leave the house, let's just go pee just to see if we need to go. The problems that this creates is that our bladder learns that it needs to empty even though it's not all the way full. So if your bladder's halfway full and you do a just in case pee, the association that'll start to be made is that when I'm halfway full, I get the urge to go. The times where just in case peeing is okay is during right before you go to bed and after you have sex. Both of those are legal just in case pees because it helps mitigate nighttime wake ups as well as UTIs or other infections after intercourse. Our fix for just in case peeing is a little bit of mindfulness, and we're going to talk more in detail about how we get into these different bladder retraining techniques, but really being able to go, okay, where am I going? How long is it going to take? Taking a few breaths, connecting with your body and saying, do I really need to go? When was the last time I went? And can I wait until I get to the place that I'm going? The other thing is that this can be a little anxiety producing, right? Am I going to be able to access a clean bathroom when I get to the place that I need to go? And so knowing that, if that's definitely something that is activating to you, is being able to know ahead of time where you're going and what the bathroom situation is like. Sometimes this is a tricky one to break, but again, remembering our bladder is a very fast learner. And so making these changes can have an impact a whole lot quicker than oftentimes we think we can. All right. The second bad habit is withholding. So on the opposite side of the spectrum of our friends who are peeing all the time, just in case, we have people who are withholding pee. These are like our nurse's bladder, our teacher's bladder, where there's not always opportunities to get to the bathroom. And so we may fall into some just in case peeing scenarios because we know we're going to be somewhere for a long period of time without access to the bathroom. The problem here is that we can end up with sort of my joking camel's bladder, where our bladder gets used to overfilling. And when we get overfilled bladder, we can end up with different pelvic floor problems like overflow incontinence or trouble with emptying our bladder all the way. And so we want to be conscious of that as well. And so our fix for withholding is, again, doing our best to be conscious of time, again, some mindfulness, and setting up boundaries, right? And so our rights to bathroom breaks are legally protected. And so if you need to speak to your management or other facilitators at play at your job, that's something that you're absolutely legally allowed to do. All right, so habit number 3 is hovering over the toilet. And I know many of us has been in a really sketchy place where the porta potty was terrible and you really didn't want to sit down. And once in a while, it's not the end of the world. But the issue is that when we're squatting to hover over the toilet, our pelvic floor muscles are not able to relax. And so we have to push our pee against a tense pelvic floor, and that can create conflict between our bladder and our pelvic floor and weaken the pelvic floor over time and increase that pressure on the bladder, contributing to other bladder issues. And so our fix for hovering is, one, just knowing that the likelihood of actually picking up any sort of infection from a public toilet, as dirty as it can be, is incredibly low. It's actually much, much lower than picking up something from a sink or a door in the bathroom. The other options are that they do sell reusable seat covers in various places that you can fold and keep in your bag. You could also keep wipes if you wanted to wipe down the toilet. But actually the exposure of your sort of pelvic area to antiseptic wipes may also not be ideal for your vulvar microbiome. You can create a little nest with toilet paper, but also just trusting that no matter the scenario, it's going to be okay, and that sitting is going to be healthier for your pelvic floor. Again, a hard one to sometimes wrap our mind around, but really important. All right. So hovering over the toilet and some of these other things can contribute to our need to power pee or push our pee out. This is where either when we're trying to start our pee stream or finish our pee stream, or they're starting and stopping of our pee stream, we're pushing and bearing down to get that pee out. Again, pelvic floor muscles then, when we bear down, kind of tighten up. And now we're pushing our bladder against this tight pelvic floor and creating conflict in that system. What happens when we do that is the muscle that surrounds our bladder and forces our pee out actually gets weaker. And so then it takes longer for us to empty our pee. And then our pee stream is really weak, or we're trickling, or we're leaking, or it's going really slowly. And so then we want to push more, which just defeats the purpose of that cycle. And so our fix here is actually to just slow down, take our deep breaths, and gradually our bladder muscle will get stronger again. We don't have active control over that bladder muscle like I talked about in that earlier video, but the better we get at positioning our body, finding balance in our pelvic floor muscles, the more that will pick up. And again, it doesn't take as long as you might think. There is a whole video after this video about techniques and strategies on the toilet, so definitely check that out and it will be a big help. All right, and then Kegling when you pee. This is one of my least favorite ones, but it's very easy to fix. I feel like there is a trend of people or a group of people who have been told this information, like you should be able to stop your pee stream mid-pee. And it is something that you should be able to do, but it's not something that we should be doing on a regular basis, and it's not going to strengthen your pelvic floor. In fact, it's going to create problems with your bladder and pelvic floor's communication and may increase your risk of UTI, incomplete emptying, other bladder issues. So just don't do it, okay? That's my solution for that problem. Just don't. Sit, relax, breathe, let your pee out. Watch that video on optimal bladder emptying. Do not cut your pee stream off. If you've gotten into a bad habit of always doing it every time, again, go ahead, watch that other video, and we will be able to break that habit. I cannot stress enough, it does not make your pelvic floor stronger, it does not make your bladder function better, it will not decrease leaks, it'll probably increase your leaking. All right, and then this key in the door syndrome, or rushing to the bathroom, ripping your clothes off on the way to the bathroom, pulling your pants down, kind of freaking out, is a really common phenomenon, key indoor phenomenon. I've heard clients call it, I'm connecting to the Wi-Fi when I get to my house, and then that bladder knows that it's time to go. Again, we are going to talk about this in more detail in the bladder retraining section, but I just wanted to quickly go over the fact that our fix is going to be counterintuitive. It's going to be that we need to down-regulate, and we are actually feeding this habit. We are feeding this association between getting to certain places, hearing certain sounds, hearing running water, whatever that linkage is to a sense of urinary urgency and whatever, we're strengthening that when we rush to the bathroom. And so in the next section where we talk about more retraining, it's going to go into more detail on how we're going to take care of that. Awesome. Well, hopefully this was helpful and stay tuned to the next one.